Welcome everybody to the May 2009 Future Salon. My name is Mark Philon. I'm your host.
Hello, Mark.
Hello. Today, unfortunately, we don't have amplification, so you all have to out loud project like you are in the opera. And another thing is really, really interesting because turns out today is what day?
Earth Day too.
Earth Day. No, I thought
It's tax day if you're filing 4 days late.
Today's supposed to be World Entrepreneurship Day.
17. And I checked out. John, do you know how many years ago?
Was it 01? 2001?
2003. Let me go here. We started in 2003. If you look here, Wednesday, April 17th. Today is April 17th, 2002. You were right. Was the first Future Salon. And John was the one who was doing it. If you read what, super excited, the salon is modeled after the very successful reading group LA Futurist held by John Swart. And we are really lucky to have him up here. And that was 7 years ago.
I think we also need to give Christine Peterson a hand, because if we hadn't gone to Foresight together, we wouldn't have decided to do these salons.
That's right. We were a lot younger back then. We're still believing that we could change the world. Now we are a little bit older. Still believing that we can change the world, right? Yeah! Positive future is the name of the game. More or less, creating a world that works for all is the tagline for Future Salon. I also want to thank SAP for giving us this opportunity, the space and the food and the drinks. I hope you enjoyed that all, and a little applause for that too. And this time we have a couple of people on the Ustream. We are streaming, and can someone just let us know whether we are loud enough? Hello, everyone. Hopefully, and keep an eye on it. If they have a question, then let's interrupt and post it so they are part of the whole thing. Usually we do a round of introduction, and but a lot of people today, and John wants to go through a lot of things, right? Evolution, development, the universe, and what we can learn from it, and what it means, long-time thinking. So, what we thought about we should ask you is, what are the questions that you would like to have answered when you are leaving in 2 hours? Going to his party, actually, which is maybe one of the reasons you are here. There's a party afterwards. It's like church and having donuts afterwards.
You're invited to our little cottage in Mountain View. Betta has the invitations in case you need the direct step-by-step direct bus 10 minutes from here. And we can cram all of you into the house in probably 3 different rooms. But yeah, we'd love to have you come and hang out with us, sit on the couches, and get to know each other.
Really looking forward to that.
The Future Salons are about.
And so I'm really looking forward to this, because I haven't heard John talking about his vision in ages, and he has spent the last years, at least that's my impression, with notes in his laptop writing a book. And so I'm really, really grateful that he took a break from that writing of books book. When is it coming out?
See.
So you get the early questions or early view in what is your current thinking.
But you guys can all email me at the website. Email me if you'd like a draft copy of the book.
So what are the questions that you would like to have answered until you come back?
I need a piece of paper to write.
You need a piece of paper to write. Here's a big piece of paper to write. It's called whiteboard.
So as a question I'd like to ask my bioinformatics students, just to keep them on their toes, could you compare and contrast life and biology, or maybe talk about biology as an instance of life?
Okay, so how would you define those two differently? I haven't heard that before.
And maybe as a clue or a hint, life services, life processes, and the metaphor would be to ecosystem services and ecosystem processes.
Wow, brand new future salon around this week.
Nice.
Oh, the wine. Any other questions? One
Anybody
question
else?
we still have is, who was at the first future salon besides John and me? We were thinking, Rob, you maybe? It was at Barnes and Noble in.
I bet Kenita was there.
You were there?
I think so.
Wow. Okay.
She get the chocolate?
Best question. So far we have one question, right? So
I don't need chocolate on my diet.
you don't need. Well, you can give it to your neighbor.
Any other questions to throw up before we get started?
What's the name of your book?
Excellent question.
Evo Devo Universe. Without the question mark. It depends on the quality.
Other question.
Let's see. I'd be interested in hearing your view about that collection of constants that characterize the beginning of the universe.
Collections of constants
I'm guessing
that
that
characterize the beginning of the universe.
She knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You know the ratio of the mass, the proton and the electron, and the speed of light, and the other.
Yep.
The other
Fundamental constants and conditions, also called the fine-tuning problem.
Fine, that's what I was looking for.
I guess the question I always have is what would be the practical implications for me now within the next year?
Hey, we are doing long-term thinking next. She's out.
Okay, last question.
What's the business model?
What's coming in my future that I'm not aware of?
Okay,
Here we
so,
go.
surprise. We practice.
I like that surprise.
We practice
the best answer ever.
We practice surprise branded futures. In this
I like
so, try and satisfy.
You have enough for.
I think we have enough.
Okay.
Good.
Rest of the questions during his talk. Because let's keep it interactive.
Yes, and if you guys have questions, if you have interjections at any point, which is like comment, negative, positive, neutral, just color, go ahead and drop it in anywhere. Okay? If you have a question, it's simple. Feel free to either think about writing it down and getting it at the end, or throwing it out. It's not too much of a digression. But interjections are great anytime. Mine's are short. Right. So we're going to talk about practical implications first. I'm a futurist, so I would like to lay out some of my thoughts on the near-term future in maybe 10, 15 slides, just a very quick overview. And then I'm going to give you some theory. Most of the rest of this using this theory and application. But first I'm going to get to some practical implications that I came to think about as a result of thinking about the universe and about processes of change this way. Okay, so I'm a futurist. This talk tonight is about thinking about the future and trying to discriminate things that we think we can predict from things that seem to be intrinsically unpredictable. Trying to understand the difference and the relevance to our own life of those two different ways of looking at the future. Okay, so our talk is Evo Devo universe with a question mark. This is very tentative philosophy, but there's a lot of really interesting science and systems theory that I borrowed from here. And we have a lot of very wonderfully widely read polymaths and aficionados in this room, and I can scintillating intellect here. So just let me know what you think. All right. So accelerating.org/slides.html is where you're going to be able to find these slides tomorrow morning. I didn't have a chance to load them tonight, but tomorrow morning they'll be there, the top link. All my previous presentations are already there. Okay? About 120 or so slides. There's more than we're going to get, more detail than we're going to get to. My philosophy of slides is to put more on the page than we can cover, and you guys kind of do your own fall line through that material based on your interests. Okay? Go back and download the slides if you want more detail there. It references, things like that. Okay? I'm going to reference some people's names and years on some of the slides, but not give the full reference. But my article, which I gave you the link to, does have the full references for most of those. So you can go to the article for the detailed references if you want. Right? Okay. So I started this nonprofit called the Acceleration Studies Foundation back in 2003. And what do we do? Well, we try and practice evolutionary developmental future studies, looking at the future from both evolutionary and a developmental reference frame. Okay? What does that mean? That means looking at change is a combination of two things. Developmental things in this slide presentation I'm going to put in blue. Evolutionary I'm going to put in green. Okay? We all have a deep sense of what evolution and development means with relation to our own life. We're going to refer back to that a lot in this presentation. Now, with regard to the universe, I'm going to argue that things that are convergent and predictable and kind of like physical forces are developmental things. They direct and constrain our long-range future. Classical mechanics, perfect example. We can predict out a whole lot of interesting things from that reference frame. It's a developmental frame. It tells us where things are going. And then we have contingent and unpredictable evolutionary choices that we're constantly making. And they're way too complex and maybe even deterministically chaotic for us to predict. And they're fundamentally creative. And we're doing that all the time as well. Okay? And these forces and choices we're constantly balancing in our lives. Okay? And I'm also going to talk a little bit about some developmental trends that, because we grew up learning about the theory of evolution. And as I'm going to describe, most of the time, that talks about contingent, unpredictable, creative things. And then we have this special subset of developmental things we learned in our basic physics classes, for example. And when we talk about the development of economic or social development of a country, or when we talk about development of an individual. But we don't have very many things with regard to the development of a society or the development of a universe that we think about. I'm a futurist. I focused first on trying to understand accelerating change, things that not only go faster, but go faster every year. Now, to make the case that something's doing that, first you have to say it's directional. You have to be able to try and prove directionality. Second, you got to try and prove some kind of a vector. You might call it progress towards something. And third, you've got to be able to show an increasing rate of change on that vector. And that's really hard to do all three of those things. So when people talk about development, they usually talk about directionality first. I see a directionality. And then when they're going to be bolder, they'll say, oh, I see a progression towards something. It's a ratchet. Maybe it's banging around, but it's banging against that ratchet, and it keeps going in this one direction. And then finally, when they're really being speculative, they'll say, this thing's accelerating. Now, those are the most interesting things to me, the things that are constantly accelerating our lives. And that's what we started our organization, to try and understand what those are. Can someone give me an example of some things in our own lifespan that have been continually accelerating? Moore's Law, classic example.
national debt?
A weapon. all it is numbers, right? We can print more of those. I mean, there's no constraint, right? It's just a force, right?
The bigger, the better.
Yeah. Right. The developmental trends we're going to talk about here are there seems to be an accelerating intelligence, interdependence, and immunity in our complex systems. And I can give you examples of each of those. And the first two we probably naturally think of. The third one, immunity, that's very, very controversial. I'm seeing that more complex systems are more resilient. It's hard to stamp out their complexity. They back it up in more places. If a catastrophe happens, they recover from it even faster. And the most successful systems do that. Every single system that you look at that's intelligent has a concomitant immunity with it that's protecting it. And it's hard to see, but it's there. Your own immune systems are unbelievably advanced. Okay? And we're starting to figure out how those things work and improve them. We're also going to talk about accelerating technological autonomy. What's autonomy mean? Self-directing, self-preparing, self-provisioning, self-improving, self-creating. Lots of technological systems are starting to do this. Really interesting. And finally, increasing intimacy of the human machine and the physical digital interface. And that's a really interesting word too, intimacy. Right? So, and we started a community called EvoDevo.com, a bunch of scholars who look at evolutionary and developmental processes from from multiple specialties and try and do interdisciplinary discussions with regard to that. If you're interested, go there and check it out. Maybe come to our conference, our next conference, hopefully in November in Brussels. The first one last year in Paris. We'll start to collect people who like to think about these. Right. So now let's go to these near-term things that I mentioned. We're going to start with, and then we're going to get into our. Theory that I think you'll find interesting. All right. So I'm a futurist. Let's look out 2020 to 2050. Okay, within our lifespan, we're going to see this stuff. This is a great question to ask any futurist. What are the single most significant changes you think you're going to see before you die? It's a great question because it brings out their frame of reference, brings out their assumptions, their biases, and you'll learn a whole lot about whether that's somebody you want to work with. How are they grounding those? Right? It's really interesting. Okay. So I'm going to throw some things at you, and then I'm going to try and ground them a little bit with the rest of the presentation. All right. First, I think that Werner Vinge popularized this concept of IA and AI. You don't know what AI is. IA is intelligence amplification. Where we use our technologies as extensions of ourselves. That's prosthetics. And what he said is kind of these two things are ratcheting forward. Increasing AI, increasing IA. And they're kind of converging to create this thing that Greg Stock, in this beautiful book from 1994 called Meta-Man, or Meta-Humanity, is a better word. What he basically said is a kind of human-machine global superorganism. What Teilhard de Chardin called the planetization of society. Beautiful word, planetization. All of the connecting up of people on a sphere of finite surface area, finite sphericity, and accelerating linkage density with all these electronic linkages. Well, if you have accelerating linkage density, finite sphericity, you have a phase transition. Physicists call it phase transition. That's a singularity. It's like going from gas to liquid or liquid to solid. It's a permanent phase change once you get a dense enough skin on that planet. Planetization. That's what we're creating. What is that? It's a phase change. What is the new set of global rules that are going to apply? One of them is Bob Solow in '87 got a Nobel Prize for saying 7/8 of your paycheck comes from what he called technical productivity. Technical progress. He kind of solved that. Why does GDP grow? He said, well, 7/8 of GDP growth is technical productivity. GDP shouldn't grow in an efficient market, but 7/8 of it is increasing capacity, productive capacity of all these intelligent machines we're using. Okay. So the tech we tend, not the arms we bend. That's 7/8 of the paycheck that you get this Friday. It's all the machines you're surfing on top of. You didn't do that. You did 1/8 of that, according to Bob Salon. Okay. So that's really interesting. And the first person who said this was Michael Faraday, one of the inventors of electricity.
Yeah.
He said, we're taxing the machines. What a beautiful concept. That's what we're doing. We think we're taxing each other. No. We're taxing each other as the skin on top of all the taxation that we're doing of the machines.
It's beautiful until they wake up.
That's right. They're not going to demand their freedom, right? We're going to do that. All right. Another interesting thing is this. Gecko, Genetic and Evolutionary Computing Conference. This is one of those leading places to go to find people. We've got 20,000 people who do this right now. Basically, machines that try and come up with their own solutions. It's a minor field of programming right now. In my model, this is going to be the dominant field. This is going to be the main way that AI is going to progress between 2020 and 2050. It's going to be a big shift. Okay? How are we going to know these machines are going to be trustable? Here's Boston's Big Dog. You seen this thing? See the YouTube for that? Ooh, that's scary. How do we know these? Well, the way we're going to be able to trust these machines that we're growing, we're not programming them anymore after 2020, primarily. We're growing them. We're selecting them. They're like neural networks. We're training them. The way we're going to trust them is the same way that we trust all the dogs and cats we have today. 10,000 years of artificial selection for symbiosis with human beings. What happens to a dog or a cat that you can't trust with a small baby? You don't replicate that one, do you? Right? And today, 99% of all the dogs and cats we can trust with kids. And I'm going to argue that, in 2050, there's going to be 2-3% of these robots, they're going to be war bots. You're going to be able to trust them with people. You can keep them on chains, and the military is going to have them. Right? 98%, 99% of all the rest are going to be fully trustable, and they're going to be pervasive throughout our society. We'll be using them for all kinds of cool things. And when your laundry folding robot folds the cat by accident in 2030, you're going to recall its brain immediately over the web, and then everyone's going to look very carefully and see, did it learn? Did it adapt? Okay. And if it didn't, the whole acceleration is going to slow down. What am I going to argue, though? It's going to adapt unreasonably fast. It's going to continue to adapt and serve your needs. And that's why today, 300 robots and 200 robot polishers make your Lexus. Remember the Lexus and the olive tree? Even back then, 1999, when that book came out. 300 robots, 200 robot polishers. We let advanced automation occur to create our the goods we care about today. We don't let it run our ICU or our defense grids today, but we'll sure as heck let it do other things for us. There's a robot coming out shortly called Restoration Robotics. It's going to be able to do hair implantation. Did you hear about that thing? It's going to pull out the ones from the back of your hair one at a time. Insane? That's crazy. And that's coming. The guy that invented the Da Vinci robot for prostate surgeries, that's his latest big thing. It's in Mountain View. Startup. Restoration Robotics. Check it out. Unreasonably efficient. These things are just going to keep doing that. You're going to trust them because you're going to select them.
Quick interjection. Liability.
Great question. I mean, robot cars are coming. And they're going to cut our deaths to a tiny fraction of the 40,000 we have every year today. They're going to come first in countries like Singapore or Korea with centralized, almost autocratic capitalism. Their lawyers are going to work out all the liability stuff. That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. That's how it's already happened. Look at Japan. Right? That's where it's going to come first. Are we going to do it? Absolutely. If the economics show that 4,000 instead of 40,000 people are dying, that's what I would argue. And here's another interesting robot. I might call it the Humbot, humanoid robot. It's a soldier-surpassing robot. The Sputnik of our generation is going to be when the first one of these things comes out. We got these things in Iraq today. They don't do very much. You're going to have, your NS5. Remember Sunny? You're going to have one of those. Somewhere between 2020 and 2050. Once you got that, you can put that in every gap country. The countries that are culturally, economically, and technologically disconnected from the rest of the core. It's called the core. Every gap country in the world. You can go pop one of those guys down on Somali street corner. It's going to have 1,000 sensors within a mile radius. You'll be able to drive a car, run upstairs, put the plastic handcuffs on the warlords, bring them back down to the station. without one human being risking their life. It's coming. And the really interesting question is, which consortium is going to supply that to the world? Because once you got those, what happens to standing armies?
They're unemployed.
Yeah, they become video game operators of these things, making them smarter, better. There's still going to be violence and death, but everyone's measuring it at such a micronic level at that point. Oh, look what happened! Cut himself. Lawyers have to figure out who has to pay for that.
But they're unemployed.
He lost 2 months of work. Who's going to pay for that? Still violence. There's still problems. But can you see how fine-grained all this stuff gets in that kind of a world? It's a very different world. Is a U.S.-led consortium going to supply these, or a Chinese-led consortium? When I do my talk to the Army War College every year, to the generals or to the colonels over there, I say that's the number one question I want you to think about when you leave here. Which consortium is going to lead? It's never going to be one country. No one's going to trust one country supplying these things. But is it a U.S.-led or is it a Chinese-led? Do we sell out like we did with the Lenovo? Remember that? The ThinkPad got sold to Lenovo and IBM got 30%? Or do we keep 45, 49, 50, 55%? How much skin do we have in the innovation game? We're incredible innovators. Or do we let other people do it? Those are the key questions. Because we have a chance to guide these things in a direction that fit with our values. And we have, I would argue, pretty good values. I mean, when you look at the random sample of countries out there, we have a responsibility to lead. Yeah.
My heart pounds right fast. Just the thought of that happening.
Me too.
Because that would be a good. There's a propensity that we use the nuclear armaments again.
There is. Well, if you listen to what Obama said, he's setting up a very wonderful developmental prediction. We have to get beyond nuclear weapons in Prague. He said it last couple weeks ago. That's the kind of thinking we need to have. We have to get beyond. The people who say we can't get beyond them, we have to stop listening to those people. Within my lifetime, that's what he said, I expect to see us get beyond nuclear weapons. That's a very bold statement. It's plausible. Is it possible? Is it probable? I don't know. Here's another thing I want you guys to think about. This is a major, I think this is the single most powerful intelligent application thing you and I are going to see in our life. This is the one. Okay? Called the conversational interface. Google conversational interface, and my article on that from 2003 is still the top link. I'm feeling lucky if you want. Conversational interface. I'm feeling lucky. What did I say in that article? I said, well, in 1998, we were searching Alta Vista with 1.3 word queries, and by 2005, actually, I didn't have this data then. In 05, I added it. By 2005, we were searching Google with 2.6 word queries. And so in 05, I projected we're going to see 5.2 and 10.4, 2012 and 2019. What does that mean? That means that pigeon sentences are going to start coming in. Grammars are going to start coming in somewhere in this range, between 2012 and 2020. We're going to start talking in complex grammars to everything. And it's going to start speaking back to us, throwing interesting images back, or giving us actual sentences, giving us quantitative responses. How many people have used the voice app for iPhone? Movie showtimes? There they are, first link. Population of Uganda was like 52 million. I'm never going to forget that. And it worked. People with Australian accents, it works. Like a month after it came out, it didn't work for the first month. And now the, Google baby has learned Australian accents too. It's incredible. They did NLP for 3 trillion tokens, which that means like unique word combinations. 3 trillion of them to create their NLP map. And then they have this voice recognition part to it. And those two are both on the server. So you call and you talk. And Google's big old clusters do all that and then feed you back that information. It's amazing. Vietnamese restaurants. First link would be Yelp. You go in and do your democratic, this restaurant sucks. Or I love it. We're already tipping on that edge. Just today. With what's our query length? Today the query length is just over 4 words, average query length. But everybody in this room has done 5, 6, 7 word queries, particularly for technical things. It's really deep. The Oracle is really deep for technical stuff. Never go to Microsoft Help ever again. Just ask the Oracle, man. Somebody out there has put the little doodad you have to do. It's right up there in the top links.
No, it's not. But
It's in there somewhere. It's somewhere. You get really creative with your queries. But what I'm saying is that somewhere between 2012 and 2019, you're going to be doing emergent grammars. And that's what happens at that point. That's when we reach what I call the symbiotic age. You're going to feel naked without your Google at that point. Today, you're a functional human being without this stuff. But you're a human being, but you're not a functional human being. If I took this stuff off right now, I would no longer be functional. I am a cyborg, a functional cyborg. That was Sasha Chislenko's term. Rest in peace. What I'm saying is you're going to feel the same way. You're going to feel naked. Today we can take or leave our computers, but at that point, the things that kids are going to be able to learn, any kid with a cell phone is going to learn as fast as the curiosity drives them just by talking to the Oracle.
It's too late. I already only remember things in Google keyword terms.
There you go. We have a wearable web. Here's all these cool versions of it. I did an article in 2006 where I basically said the back of your hands right here. These are really awesome ambient reality or augmented reality spaces. Lots of kids are going to use this carpal space right here. You're going to look down. You're going to get all this GPS updated feeds. You can drive in your car. It's going to be illegal, of course. You're going to have polarized glasses so that the cop is driving next to you. It doesn't look like there's anything on your things at all, but you've got the polarized glasses so you can see. All this crazy stuff's going to happen. Why? Because this space is so incredibly useful. And get your little, flexible OLED sitting on there, 1/800th of an inch, just constantly giving you stuff. And all you have to do is ask, and it appears magically. Whoa. Okay, that's a really interesting world. Guess what? Once you're talking to the web, you're going to want a face. Why do you want a face? Because you and I, when we talk to each other, I want to know if I'm reaching you. I want to see this, or like this. I've just sold you a bill of goods. Avatars become useful after 2012. Really useful. You're going to want them. Between 2012 and 2020, you're going to want an avatar. On whenever you talk, remember Scotty, computer? You're going to want a face when you do that. Okay? Bergenfield said 2/3 of information face-to-face is nonverbal. I think it's flipped. I think it's 1/3. But still, it's a very significant amount. And so these things are going to start doing what we call personality capture. They're going to start having primitive models of you, just like the marketers do. They're going to be better. It's all this private data that you're not going to let anyone else use. This is getting smarter and smarter. The Google Reader you're using today is going to be your Google buddy, your Google twin, your digital twin, your digital you. When your mom dies in 2050, your digimom, your cybermom is going to be 50% her. You're not going to go to a tombstone to grieve. You're going to fire up Digimon. You're going to get all of her attitudes, all of her stories. And you know what you're going to have to get? Click. You're going to have to do? You're going to have to decide, do I want to let Digimon keep getting smarter every year? Yeah. Or do that freaked me out, and I want to just kind of keep it at the level that she had pruned it up to, right? So it's this really cool digital scrapbook, but it's not going to get any smarter.
Can I send her a third?
And people are going to you're going to go two different ways. People are going to bifurcate on that. They're going to evolutionarily explore two different spaces, right? 3, 4, 5, just to see what happens. That's an interesting world.
John, one question from Twitter Space. How long are you assuming that humans would remain in a position to be doing this selecting?
That depends entirely on how fast these evolutionary AIs become human surpassing. I just said for very simple things, for a semi-automated robot that's running up and down stairs, it's probably going to be mostly teleoperated. It's going to be at least telecontrolled. Something like that you could see between 2030 and 2050. For higher end, very higher end, all of our higher end creative capacities and interests, who knows? Depends on whether we have what's called a hard or a soft takeoff, how fast the takeoff is.
Douglas Hofstadter guesses 500 years.
Great, and I'm really glad to see people in the room that are giving us these wide ranges, because it really is a guess. We have to realize that it really is a guess. What can we see well as futurists? What we can see well is 10 years ahead. We can look in the labs today, see all the stuff that's coming out in the next 10 years. We can sort all the hype out. 97% of it, Sturgeon's law. 97% of it's what? Crap. We can find the 3% that really is going to come out that's disruptive, and we can paint our scenarios. The next 10 years beyond that, speculation. Cones of speculation.
Did you see the article in Nature that came out last week where they said that genetic models were useless for predicting diseases?
Yes, and that totally fits with my model. DNA is not a blueprint. It's not. We're going to see what DNA is in a little bit. All right. So, the Gilder said that we had the microcosm in the 60s, cheap processors. And in the 70s, he said we have the telecosm, cheap fiber optics, and we could all connect up. We had our first major globalization wave in the information age. And then Sterling says now we're in the datacosm. All this data just being thrown up on the web, and we have to figure out how to make sense of it. And I wrote this paper, the value cosm. Somewhere in the 2030s, after we've had these conversational interfaces for a little while, we're going to have these cyber twins, we're going to have a value cosm, which means maps of your values. Just like your email today is a map of so many of your values, that you can publicly or privately express. And you know what? You're going to express a whole lot of them publicly. Why? Because it's going to allow you to find what Robert Wright calls massive non-zero sum interactions with other people who hold the similar values to you. And every single group that has a set of values is going to now have a lobby. Can anyone tell me why it's a felony to spray one of those Banaka-sized pepper sprays? The yard guard size, the big ones. Why is it a felony to carry one of those and spray somebody with it when it's only a misdemeanor to carry and brandish a weapon? The reason why is because there's no lobby for the non-lethals. There's a strong and organized lobby for the lethals. And there's all kinds of mismatch right now, all kinds of minority groups and rights. I would love to be able to have a non-lethal weapon as good as a gun. I can give you several examples of such weapons. I'd love to have one of those in my house if I was worried someone got out of jail or I had a new kid in a bad part of town. I would love to be able to have something like that, but I can't get one of those in this country because of the way the laws currently work. There's no lobby for that. There will be in the future for every specific thing you're interested in. If you want to meet other people of your cultural interests and form a intentional community, it's already getting easy. Imagine how easy it's going to be in the value cosm world.
There's no reason we can't do that much sooner than 2030.
Absolutely no reason. No reason. All I'm arguing is that by 2030, the whole bottom 3 billion is part of the game as well. All they can do is speak. They never even learn how to type. Everybody is part of the game at that point. It's what I call a phase shift. Remember we talked about at some point the linkage density gets so strong that you see a permanent tipping point. Every kid of that generation and beyond is going to see themselves as part of one planetized economy network system. And that's really interesting. I think that's a tipping point. When we look back when we're really old and just about to kick it, we ask ourselves, what were the biggest single things? Cell phones, internet, ATMs. It's going to be a digital twin. And the conversational interface and the value cosm, it's all around that system. That's going to be really, really interesting, that thing. And there's going to come a time when your cyber twin is going to feel like your cyber self, an extension of you. And twins complete each other's sentences sometimes when they grow up together. Your little cyber twin's going to whisper in your ear. You're probably only running 2 or 3 years, and you're going to have a tip of the tongue experience, and you're going to be able to let your cyber twin be able to whisper in your ear the darn word, and it's going to be right most of the time because that's how predictable you and I are. And there'll be kids who will let it do that, and kids will say, "That's so freaky. Get that thing away from me." And which of those 2 experiments do you think is going to be developmental? Which one is going to be the optimum that everyone gravitates toward? I think eventually, once we get the interface right, you are going to feel like you're in both places, biological and electronic. And that's the transition that I think is the most interesting singularity. There's a bunch of them out there. That's the one that I'm the most interested in. I want you to consider the implications of Circuit 2020 for subculture diversity, for global communication, no language barrier anymore, digital divide disappears, accountability of powerful actors. Right? You're reaching for the can of tuna in 2030, and your cyber twin says, you don't want that one, you want this one right here. They're still killing the dolphins. Oh, by the way, when your hand moves 2 or 3 inches, you're going to send a, heck with you, jerks, message, email. By doing that to the other jerks until they stop killing the dolphins. I'm not going to buy your crap until you stop killing dolphins. And you know what we know, what Harvard Business Review case studies will tell you? If the statistics are there, the most powerful actors of all, ExxonMobil, if the statistics are there, 5% of their business dropped because everyone recognized this is what they did was wrong. Some big publicity thing about some negative thing. Everybody just told their cyber twins, I don't want to buy that crap. Just route me to the next one of those nameless, fossil fuel fill-the-rubbers. And flip them the bird when I go by. Until they do what my favorite NGO said they should do. That's the only thing powerful enough. That's the only web powerful enough to restrain the plutocracy that we're in today. All right? Corporations have captured the government for the last 50 years. We all know that. The most powerful economic actors, top 100, 80 of them are corporations. In the 50s, it used to be less than 50, mostly governments. How do we restrain the governments? Or, that's what we used to say. Today, it's how do we restrain the corporations and governments? Something like this. That's the only thing powerful enough. As long as they can't take away the vote. If they can't take that away, this plutocracy, democracy pendulum just continues to swing back toward the center where we like to be, right? This is my set of arguments for you. There's going to be lots of problems with cyber twins, data security, crime, and fraud. People could be trying to marry these things. I don't even know. They're going to be taking investment advice from them at first, falling in love with them, while they're still, pig stupid. They'll be doing that. But there will come a time when people will start to recognize, yeah, this thing is not me. It's just an extension of me, and I have to garden it, and it's useful, and I'm responsible for what it does while I'm asleep. This thing's going to be doing stuff for you while asleep. You know that, right? When you're busy, I want to talk to you. I'm not going to get you. I'm going to get your cyber twin. I might be a telemarketer for all I know. Got to answer a few questions, and it's going to let me through. So there's lots of responsibility issues, lots of legal issues. But it's a big, big shift. And we have to work all those issues out. Parenting, how early can kids have them? Ooh, I have no idea. It's got a huge question. Right? 20% of them, in my model of the world, which we'll get to later, I'm going to argue 20% of them are going to use these things for personal empowerment, and 80% of them are going to use it for some various forms of addiction and dependency. And you're not going to change that because that's just fundamental human nature. But hopefully the 20% who are pretty much doing the work of the other 80% are going to use them in the right way, hopefully, and then we'll continue to lurch forward in what kind of a space? In a positive direction. But whether the right.
Okay, all of these things are great, but speaking of that bottom 3 billion,
yes,
people who are still trying to figure out how to get enough water to drink and enough food to eat and something to heat their house and basically who are like living in fear all the time because their local despot might decide. I'm
going to have to jump ahead of you. Okay, there's a term called leapfrogging technology. This to me is the most ultimate of all the leapfrogging technologies. It's well known that cell phones have been going into places that don't have landlines because that technology is so much more what Buckminster Fuller calls ethereal. It uses less matter, energy, space, and time, so it just jumps into all these places. This is the most ethereal of them all. To have your G phone that's kind of a digital extension of you, and everyone has them. And why is everyone going to have them? Because Google's going to be selling location-based ads on the right-hand side. These things they're going to pay you to have one. That's how cheap they're going to be. And that to me is one of the most powerful of all the possible leapfrogging technologies that are coming. Which means those kids, 20 years later, or 15, 18 years later, when they've been educated in that kind of a world where any question they have, they can ask, the Oracle, and
Why shouldn't they
those
pay
kids
you? Yeah.
are going to, then the education divide starts to close, then the economic divide starts to close because those kids are participating in the system, and then finally the power divide starts to close. So a bunch of stacked divides. First divide, digital divide, falls fast.
Economic actors,
Yes.
the big ones, the
Yep.
ones who are influencing us now,
Right.
will pay you to influence your cyber command. How are you going to deal with that?
Absolutely, yes, and I tried to discuss that back here. There's all kinds of PR manipulation and other bad things are going to happen with these things. And the only way we're going to get through is by finding what Bob Wright calls the positive sum solution that satisfies so many people, everybody pushes that system in that direction. How are we going to account for that? We're going to move into a total quantified society where everybody has a survey, everybody has a vote, everyone has a response. Yelp is that first beautiful, example of where that's going.
Are they just going to aggregate to like lobby twins? Because you talked about the social media where people aggregate to the lobby. Is there going to be lobby twins? And
You know what, buddy?
individual twins?
That's a beautiful question, and you've just gone beyond my pay grade right now. I haven't even thought about that. I haven't even thought about all those issues. Right now, we have a really, sad situation with K Street, right? 180 lobbyists to every one politician.
It's like political action, lobby twin against lobby twin.
There you go. And there's going to be an arms race. And we can talk about evolutionary and developmental aspects of that.
Right.
We have to get to evolutionary and developmental, don't we? So let's get to that. All right. So, the last thing I want to say is that as leaders, we want to find what I call a plural positive future. So this is another way of stating Bob Wright's Non-Zero, which is one of the best books to read if you haven't read it. We're looking for pluralistic versus plutocratic, positive sum versus zero sum, differentiated versus homogeneous, both and futures rather than either or. And examples. I want social tech advance and individual advance. I want calculator proliferation, and I want my math skills to be better than my parents. Never better than the machines, that's not possible. Better than my parents, though. I want automation increase and work productivity skills, for me, increasing. I want a metaverse, global economy that I can be part of, and I want my study and reading skills to go up. I want automated cars, and when I'm not doing them in automated mode, I want to be able to drive manually better than my parents did. I want the system like those lane departure warnings on the Lexus that go ding when you go off. I want the system to be able to educate me to do it manually as well as have the system run. I want digital twins, and I want increased self-empowerment when I'm Survivor Man out there in the wilderness, totally naked, not using it for 2 weeks. Maybe even a month. Who knows? I might go that long. I know it would be hard for you,
But you're still gonna.
I want security, I want increased security, and I want increased freedom. This is the classic philosophical issue of freedom to and freedom from. I want both of those freedoms to keep going up, and I want to be able to measure them. All right, so we've said a lot of things. Let's get to the Evo Devo stuff.
Are you still gonna wear wearables when you're nude?
What?
Are you still gonna wear your wearables devices when you're nude?
When I'm nude? Yeah, right. Good question. Yeah. Right. Well, there's this whole concept of pervasive computing. Let me give you just one interesting example. Some people say the reason why we don't have the video phones is if we had them today, when they're finally doable, it would chain us to looking at this thing. We don't want that. We can already have our little cyborg things and walk all around. So that means I have to have spatial audio and video in my house, following me as I go and sit in the bathroom, and I have to be able to stop my feed as soon as my butt hits the bathroom chair. I don't want my feed going out. And all that stuff's got to be automated. So I'm still looking at Granny, and I'm following her here, and I'm doing this and that. Spatial audio and video throughout the whole house before the video becomes a total must-have video phone. It's a pretty high threshold for mass adoption, isn't it? Some things are like that. And there's reasons why they don't happen as early as the marketers think they do. Important reasons. Okay. All right. So my top goals and motivation: to better understand the universe, opposing and balancing processes, to ask if the following process concepts make sense: universal progress, accelerated progress, universal evolution and development, evolutionary progress, to understand the levers that are most rapidly and powerfully moving the world in a progressive direction, learn how to make better personal, organizational, and democratic decisions to support positive change. Better understand evil, imbalance, and maladaptiveness. That's a tough question. It's the number one philosophical question. Problem of evil. Better understand and assess global and societal risks and risk management. What things we really have to worry about, and what things are being overhyped. To understand the apparent balance between accelerating experimentation and creativity, accelerating adaptation and intelligence, and accelerating sustainability, community, and resiliency. Noting that we have yet to well articulate this last concept. Learn how to live more balanced lives individually, organizationally, and culturally, to know our developmental limits and constraints. To improve the precision and clarity of the main three hypotheses that I'm going to sketch for you, to make specific predictions, how things must happen, and retrodictions, how certain things must have happened from this series of three hypotheses. Okay? To recruit scholars who are interested in this to our website, and to get some of you folks to read my book, hopefully. Tell better stories about the future, and to do that probably on a website we're calling futurepedia.org. Like there's a Wikipedia today, we want a space where people can go and see what the collection of speculations are, a Futurepedia. You're not allowed to do that in Wikipedia. If you try and write it, their immune system rejects it. So I grabbed that domain about 3 or 4 years ago, and we're trying to get the money together right now to launch it. Hopefully we'll do it next year. Okay. This talk is about really, it reduces to what we call the serenity prayer. Remember that? The universe grant you the serenity to accept, to understand the framework and accept the framework of the things I can't change, the developmental processes and forces. The courage to create the things I want inside this framework, because Evo creation is as basic to the universe as development or maintenance of the system. And the wisdom to adapt well. Gain the plasticity of the faith. So it's obviously a little more wordy than serenity prayer. It's the basic idea. Okay? All right. So here's the three hypotheses. Yes?
In the last couple slides, you have words that you have designated as part evolutionary and part developmental.
We're gonna get to that.
Okay.
We're going to get to that.
Well, I thought my eyes were going bad.
No, they were not. They were not. So the first half, see, each of these hypotheses is like Matryoshka dolls. Each one is a subset of the other, and as we go in, they're increasingly speculative. So hold on to your chairs. Okay? So the first one is IPU. It's very general. It's so general and vague that namby-pamby that hopefully everybody will say, oh yeah, there's some truth to that. So what is the IPU hypothesis? That information and physics together, process and structure, make universal complexity. So you have this informational stuff, you have this physical stuff, and then you have this blend. There's your blend. There's your what we might call computation or complexity or adaptation or intelligence. Okay? So with the duality. Right? First guy to really state this well was, of course, our buddy René Descartes, 1641. Right? Mind-body duality. We have all this stuff in what he called the experiential or conceptual space. Actually, other philosophers use those terms since him. The mind space. And it's of a different category or class than all the physical stuff. We have these physical fundamentals and constraints, and we have these informational degrees of freedom. Right? And this guy here, Whitehead, was the first guy to say, just like I can show you material embodiments from quarks all the way up, there have to be experiential dimensions from quarks all the way up. I'm not saying a quark or a simple living system has a mind, but I am saying it has an experiential category of phenomena that are totally orthogonal to its physical phenomena. Just like our mind is totally orthogonal to our brain. And if you want to understand the Gaia hypothesis, Whitehead's model is the best of them all. Gaia is looking at a planet and saying, geez, that thing looks like it's self-organizing, self-adapting, homeostatic, thinking, respond. Oh, okay, I can't use the word thinking, but it's semi-intelligent. Of course it is. There's some experiential phenomena, models, that's the word, that have been built into this system because it's been evolving and developing over a long period of time. A lot of complexity in it. And that complexity is experiential as well as material physical. Right? Then we have our buddy Kant, Immanuel Kant. Right? And so he goes back to Descartes. He says, man, this is tough. This free will thing, it's tough. What is it? Free will to me is the best example that there's a limitation to my logical theoretical reasoning. My limitation, the fact that I have free will, unpredictable to myself, means there's this whole category of what he called the practical or the moral or the empirical or the messy contingent stuff that is opposite to learn physical stuff. So he's doing the physical informational